of the Habsburg dynasty. When we see the end of the Habsburg dynasty, we want to think, well, what happened to the Habsburg dynasty? How does it come to an end? Well, it ends because of this. And I'll let you pause here, and I want you to look at this weird family tree. So pause it. Hopefully we're now back. Look at all the inbred. Uncles marrying nieces. Do you want to marry your aunt or uncle? Think about the number of all of this. This family tree is not really a tree. It's a singular line. And what happens at the end, we get the last of the Spanish monarchs. And that last Spanish monarch is right here, Charles II of Spain. Remember, this is a painting, so this is actually a pretty picture of Charles. Does he look pretty to you? So in reality, from what I understand, his tongue never was able to go into his mouth. It was always hanging out. This dude is weird. And do you see this weird jaw? We call that the Habsburg jaw because it was a part of being inbred. This is really weird, but not only was the jaw this way, his private part didn't work. So he is the last of the Spanish Habsburgs because he ain't having any more children, if you know what I mean. Weird, weird, weird. And there's so much here if you want to know more about him. But in 1700, he died without a direct heir. And this creates the immediate atmosphere because Philip of Anjou, or a relative of Louis XIV, is now going to be, he's going to be able to be king, maybe. But at the same exact time, we have the Austrian Habsburgs that said, no, you don't. The Spanish Habsburgs are Habsburgs, so we deserve it. And it's going to create a crazy, crazy war. So before we get to the war, once again, we're not sure who is going to be the king of Spain. We're going to have this balance of power fight. Is a Bourbon going to become a king? Or maybe even will Louis XIV absorb Spain? We're not sure what's happening. So this is why the war occurred. This is why we encourage you not to inbreed. Just joking. All right. With that said, the key pattern, I want to point out the battles. The British Navy is going to dominate the seas, consistently defeating the French. And we see these different squadrons that we have triangulating, keeping goods in from Spain, resources from Spain. The British dominated. Where the French army is going to dominate the land. This is from the work Marquis de Law. If he's not dead, he's retired, but his legacy is here. His army is not going to lose a lot of key battles. Significant. The turning point happens at the Battle of Blenheim. The Battle of Blenheim is extremely important. Even though it's 1704, we're still really 9 years away from the end of this war. The reason it's a turning point is because it's the first time a French army was defeated. And this is going to be this great great British general, Duke of Marlborough, John Churchill. You might have heard Churchill before. Yes, he's one of the ancestors of Winston Churchill, and he has a smashing victory over the French army. So once the French army is defeated, the French they're on their retreat. They're no longer thinking about the seas. The British are able then to fill in more soldiers, offsetting the balance of power. And really, we begin to see that the French begin to crumble under the pressure of the British and the forces. By 1713, Louis XIV, old, elderly, he's 2 years from dying, he calls a timeout. He's like, hey, I sue for peace. Let's negotiate this. And let's just make sure the Peace of Utrecht settles all these balance of power issues. Number one, the devastated Dutch are going to declare neutrality. They realize they're better lovers than fighters, if you know what I mean. They are not prepared to challenge the balance of powers any longer. So they say, hey, we're going to be neutral. All other wars, we're not going to maintain a standing army to have war. We are going to be neutral. We're going to be the businessmen of Europe. And that's going to be significant because as their golden age comes to an end, they're still going to be that bank center. The Spanish Bourbons, Philip V does become king of them, and Spain is given. So what we see here, Spain now becomes Spanish Bourbons and French Bourbons. They can never merge the bourbons. So how many bourbon families will we have? 2 bourbons, the Spanish Bourbons and the French Bourbons. So we have 2 bourbon dynasties. Clearly the bourbons are still powerful. This is definitely not going to destroy the bourbons. Austria, to maintain that balance of power, does everybody see this? These lands are now purple. So Spain, as they become Spanish Bourbons, to maintain a sense of balance of power, the Italian and Flemish lands that once belonged to Spain are now going to be considered Austrian. And we're going to call these the Austrian Netherlands until 1830. So this is going to be a long land, and they're going to maintain dominance of Italy until the 1860s. So the Austrians are really, this completes their transformation. Yes, Austria is no longer thinking about centralizing Germany, but look what they have done here. Look how the Treaty of Karlowitz has really given them significant land to the Balkans, and now they're going to get significant land here. The Austro-Habsburgs are going to be the second, or probably the second most powerful dynasty in Europe at this time. Could be argued some others, but that's what I'm going to stick with. Prussia in 1713. This is when Prussia goes from a principality into a kingdom. The Holy Roman Emperor rewards the Hohenzollerns with their support by establishing Prussia into an independent kingdom. That, of course, is going to bite them later, the Austrians. And Britain emerged as the leading imperial power as they gain key lands in French Canada. But also remember, they also get that Asiento here. And I think this is really, really significant. I'm going to pause here for a second before we finish this lecture. So what we're seeing here, the French Bourbons their power is checked. They're not going to be able to gain in these lands. They're going to be restricted to their traditional 1657 border, 1667 border. Maybe some of that, maybe a little bit of land. Spain is now Spanish Bourbons. Austrian Habsburgs gets a large breadth of land. Prussia emerges. But remember, Britain might be the reason France loses. But is Britain thinking about European stuff? No, they're thinking about imperial. This is significant because the British are no longer worried about gaining European lands. Well, maybe this area, Gibraltar. But you see Gibraltar, that's really kind of important. But other than that, they're not worried about creating a European empire. They want to continue expansion. So they're going to gain those key lands of Newfoundland and New Nova Scotia that you see in this map. So now we're done with the wars of Louis XIV. This is a product of all of this centralization. And now we have a sense of stability. We can breathe. I ask you now, what is the end of the 17th century? I've talked about 1603 as the beginning. I think that's pretty definitive, but we can argue that. But now just begin to think, is the end of the 17th century, is it 1713 with the Peace of Utrecht? Is it 1714 with the death of Anne? Or is it 1715 with the death of Louis XIV? What is more significant? What establishes this entrance into the 18th century? I'll let you ponder that. You guys have a great day. I hope to be coming back soon.